Merhaba, günaydın herkese. Ben kısa bir Türkçe giriş yaptıktan sonra sunumu İngilizce yapacağım. Slaytlar İngilizce olduğu için dedim tarzanca yapmak yerine hepsini İngilizce yapmaya çalışalım. Şirketimin adı Verity Analytics. Küçük bir startup'ız. Bir yıl önce kurulduk ve ben aslında eğitim olarak endüstri mühendisiyim. Fakat uzun yıllardır da veri bilimcisi olarak çalışıyorum. En çok keyif aldığım şey veriyle vakit geçirmek. Veri analitiği, öngörü analitiği üzerine bir şirket kuralım dedik ve ilk girdiğimiz sektörde şehirler oldu. Şehirleri nasıl daha akıllı yaparız? Bu sabah da size bu konuda neler oluyor? Hızlı veriyle nasıl şehirleri daha akıllı hale getirebiliriz? Onun üzerine bir konuşma yapacağız. Sorularınız olursa kahve arasında veya günün sonunda severek cevaplandırmaya çalışırım. Good morning everyone. So, a million years ago we started walking upright, and 70,000 years ago there was a slight genetic mutation that led us to start thinking a little bit more smartly. We started getting into slightly larger groups, telling stories to each other, mostly foraging and just going from place to place to get food. But then, 12,000 years ago, we realized that we can domesticate animals, we can domesticate plants, which meant that we didn't have to run around anymore. We can just stay in one place and actually eat whenever we feel like. And that meant that we actually had to build communities, first cities. So first cities we started 12,000 years ago. And cities grew larger and larger, but they weren't that large until the beginning of Industrial Revolution. When Industrial Revolution began, we had better means of transportation, so this meant cities could grow larger, so you can actually go in different parts of the cities using trains, buses, etc. So now we have a very different picture. In 200 years, we came a long way. Earth's surface, 2% of it is now covered by big cities. These cities have 50% of the world's population. They consume 75% of the global energy, so a huge chunk of it. And pollution-wise, 80% of global emissions are produced by cities. And clearly, things are not going to stop here. In the next 30 years, 35 years, this is expected to grow larger and larger. Before Industrial Revolution, 20% of the world population was in cities. By 2050, we expect that to be 70%. And urban capacity is going to keep doubling. So cities are going to grow larger and larger. How do you make them more manageable? How do you make them more livable? Comes in the concept of smart cities. Now, smart cities the concept has been around for the last few years. Everybody has their own definition for it. My definition is using information technological advances to keep a pulse of the city so that you can make the city more affordable, more sustainable, more environmental friendly, more affordable, and more livable at the end of the day. And doing this also by making sure that you have democratic participation of all the citizens of the city. And you can try to look at different parts of the city and say these are elements that make up the city. This is a diamond to describe what's going on. You have smart healthcare, you have smart infrastructure, you have smart governance. There are many different components to this. When they ask people what they think of when they're given the word smart city, this was their response. And as you can see, the first thing everybody thinks about is digital. So if you want to make a city smarter, you have to have data. You have to have digitized the city. And just a little note here, it looks like security looks like the very last thing here, but that's not because people don't care about security. That's because they think that has to come anyways. Whether the city is smart or not, it has to be safe, it has to be secure. But if you want to make it really smart, then you have to go digital. So how are we going to make the cities more digital? By collecting bigger data, by collecting more data, by collecting faster data. When you look at the cities now, you have people using smartphones, there's public lighting, there's digital billboards, there's closed circuit TVs. All these are means to collect more and more data from the city. And it's been predicted that by 2020, there's going to be around 50 billion connected devices in the world, which means we're going to have more data. And that also means that we're going to have an average of 7 devices per person. So again, this means that we are going to be able to generate a lot of data really fast, and that data, if utilized correctly, will be able to make the city smarter. Again, the size of the data, the speed of the data, if you look at how much data we have now, how much digital data we have now, and how much it will grow, it's been predicted that right now we have around 3.2 zettabytes of digital data, and that's going to grow by 10-fold in the next 6 years or so. And 1 zettabyte is roughly a billion terabytes. And what is a terabyte? A terabyte is roughly 1,000 gigabytes. So I think nowadays we have computers that have like 300 gigabytes, 500 gigabytes, so it's a little larger than that. But at the end of the day, we're going to have more data again. We're going to have data at a faster speed. So this means we're going to be able to get the cities smarter, right? Is this going to happen today? Do we have a lot of smart cities now? Gartner every year releases these curves called hype curves. It shows where we are in the hype cycle of a certain technology. If you look at this graph, smart cities is right here. There is the innovation trigger. We had a peak of inflated expectations. Right now we are there. Everybody is thinking smart cities is the best thing that happened to us. We have high expectations. Next, we're going to go through a period of disillusionment, but at the end, we're going to get to a plateau of productivity. But for smart cities, as you can see, the color is blue. This means it's going to take us 5 to 10 years to get to that plateau or productivity. So it's going to take a while. But I think what we owe to ourselves in the meantime, in these 5 to 10 years, is educate ourselves better about what a smart city is, and also make our infrastructure so that we can actually collect more data and analyze it better. So I'm going to try to give you a few different examples of how cities can be smarter. And again, there are many different ways of you can do this, but I'm going to focus on 4 different branches. How safety is affected by digitization, fast data. How energy can be made smarter. Traffic and transportation, I mean, all of us living in Istanbul, we know how this is such an important thing for a growing city, for a large city. And also environmental concerns. How do you make the city more green, again, using data? So let's start with safe. When you think about safe, the first thing that comes to my mind is, can we figure out if there are any criminals around? If there is a problem in the city, can we detect it right away? And one way to do that is putting cameras all over the city and doing object identification and object tracking. This could be inanimate objects. This could be people. And this is a huge field called video analytics. Whether you're collecting your video from regular video or infrared video or any other kind of imaging, you look at those images and you try to pinpoint any issues that are going on in the city. And if you think about this, this is a lot of data that, because every video image, every image is going to have a huge size, and also it has to be broadcast in a very, very fast fashion. So this means you have to have the right infrastructure for it. I think the GSM companies will definitely have to have a lot of work in this particular field. Another way of making a city safer is trying to figure out if there is a crime, can I get there soon? Can I figure out how it happened? There is a company in California called ShotSpotter. They were found almost 20 years ago. The idea is these guys put microphones on different parts of a street, and when there's a gunshot on the street, they can actually figure out where on the street that gunshot was. They can even figure out what type of a gun was shot. And they can use this to actually arrest people. They can use this for emergency response. When they developed this and then deployed it in 2008 in DC, they were able to help find 62 victims. And again, if you're in an urgent situation, it's really important that you find the victim right away. They also helped some arrests, and they have grown so much that now they have over 90 different locations in the Americas. There are also a few different ways you can use data to make cities safer. Singapore, I read yesterday, just created a very specific 2D map of their city so that if there is a hurricane, if there is a problem in the city, they can simulate how to evacuate the city in the safest way possible. So, again, things you can do are fairly endless. So, how are you going to make the cities more energy savvy? And again, how are you going to do it using data? There are many different ways of looking at this as well, but you can have smart meters, you can use renewable energy, you can make smart buildings. I'll talk about smart meters in a moment, but renewable energy, I want to emphasize one thing here. You don't just use renewable energy, but you use it also in a very productive fashion. I saw a pilot study in Budapest. They had these solar panels. They would use the solar panels to actually charge these huge batteries. And then they would put those batteries into the grid during the time of the day when electricity was really expensive. So not only you're using renewable energy, but you're using renewable energy at the time where it's the most costliest, basically the most important point to use. Now, let's talk about smart meters a little bit. So if you put the right sensors on the meters, you can do many different things. You can, first of all, if an equipment fails, if a part of your grid fails, if there's a power outage in one part of the city, you can get quickly notified so that then you can fix it right away. But that's not necessarily the most interesting part to me. The most interesting part is you can actually identify potential failures, what we call predictive maintenance. You say, this is what might happen because I'm looking at the signal of this particular device and it looks like it might fail in the next hour, it might fail in the next day, maybe the next week, and I'm going to go ahead and fix it and do some maintenance on it before anything bad happens. And I think that's very powerful. Especially, I mean, think about, again, Istanbul, how often we have power outages when there is some extra use of ACs and stuff like that. Another way of making the cities more energy savvy is putting street lights and turning them into LEDs. Now, LEDs are a very cool technology that's been around for a long time, but now they have become cheaper to install, relatively speaking, and they give you a lot of energy savings. And one interesting thing about LED lights or street lighting is that if you want to collect data from a city, very fine granular data, you can do it, using people's cell phones, because everybody has cell phones. But if you want to have static place objects to collect data, then you can use street lights to actually put sensors on. If you put the right sensors on street lights, you can, first of all, manage the street light level. Actually, again, I've seen another pilot project where you can dim the street light level at night. If there is nobody on the street, you can bring the street light level down to 40% because nobody is on the street, nobody's going to use the street. So let's just bring it down to 40%, and if somebody passes through the street, then bring it back up. But not only that, smart energy management, you can also put sensors on these lights. You can monitor air quality, you can improve security, you can look at parking and traffic, and you can even reach your consumers through digital billboards. This is something as Verite we are actually very excited about. We have a pilot project in Izmir that's going to be unveiled in the next month or so. What we do is we're basically going to look at a part of Izmir and try to put basically smarter streetlights there and see what we can do with this data to make the city a better place. Transportation. As the city grows larger, there's going to be traffic. So how do you manage traffic? Congestion costs a lot of money. This is a 2013 figure in the US. So how do you avoid that? You can put smart traffic lights. So it's only green when it's supposed to be green. It's only red when it's supposed to be red. And you can actually dynamically change the length of the traffic lights. Then you'll probably have less traffic. And there are different pilot studies in Turkey and in the world on these, and they have been fairly successful. There are also, if you think about traffic, there is the traffic through private vehicles, but there is also public transportation. You can try to use data again, try to have a better understanding of public transportation. This is a company called MoveIt. What they do is they collect real-time data through volunteers about the public transport system. And that way, you can actually have a better understanding of how your buses run, how your trains run. And again, if you think about it, this is a lot of data that needs to go through different systems in a really fast fashion. It needs to be analyzed well. It needs to be, the results should be brought back to the users really fast. Another important issue is parking. When you have parking issues, if you can't park fast, then you're going to have time loss, you're going to have money loss, you're going to have more traffic. There are different companies that offers different parking apps. This is one company called ParkWiz, and they actually show you real time where the best parking places near you are. In San Francisco, where I was last week, they actually have a pilot system where they installed these smart parking meters in different parts of the city, and they were actually able to eliminate some of the time drivers spent looking around. 43% is actually a very good saving, and again, it's saving of your time, it's fuel saving. Imagine in Istanbul if we had something like this, it would make our lives much, much better. How do you make cities cleaner using data? There are, again, many ways of doing this, but one way is better collection of waste, better collection of trash. By putting sensors in trash cans, you can figure out which trash cans need to be visited so that you can do this in real time. Not only that, you can also predict, oh, this one is not full, but it's going to be full within the next 4 hours, so let's go ahead and fix that. I mean, one of my pet peeves, I think it's very important to make sure that you have these waste trucks, waste collecting trucks, go around the city in a smart way, because sometimes I'm at Vali Konağı, like Tuesday afternoon around 4 p.m., where the traffic is crazy, and in the middle of that crazy traffic, there are like two waste trucks. I'm like, why are these guys here at this time of the day where they can be there when there is less traffic? So again, in the world, there are a lot of pilot studies on this too. I'm going to briefly talk about the Berlin one. In Berlin, they realized that they have around 21,000 trash cans, which requires 4.6 million pickups in a year. So imagine how much money can be saved if you can make this $1 cheaper, these pickups, or even a cent cheaper at the end of the day. And what they do is they do optimization, real-time optimization based on where should we put these waste bins, how frequently should we empty them, how do we plan the route of these trash cans. At the end of the day, this is a company called Libelium. They do sensors. In a city, you can have sensors in many different ways. You can have it on the streets, you can have it in the buildings, you can have it in parking lots. I mean, my favorite one is here. This is not necessarily fast data, but you can use data to enhance wine quality, because wine is very susceptible to the amount of dryness of the soil. So if you can monitor the soil dryness well, then you're going to have a better wine, kind of thing. But there are limitless possibilities to make the city smarter. And the best way to make the city smarter is to collect a lot of data, to collect it really fast, to analyze it real time, and to deliver results to all the citizens in real time. So in general, I love data. And if you have any data sets that are refusing to tell you any stories, I'll look at them and tell you what stories they give you. Thank you. Thank you very much.